Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Deep Cover Podcast. It is a rare occasion when I do two episodes in a week, but it's the end of the year, ending 2025 on a good note. And for those who don't know, New Year's is actually one of my favorite holidays, which is strange to say because so many people hate the holiday because of all the stuff that it implies in regards to drunkenness and drunk driving and drama at parties and whatever the case may be. But I always look at it as a rebirth for the next year. And as a result, it's one of my favorite holidays, if not my most favorite holiday, if you ask anybody around me. So, to talk about New Year's today, I wanted to bring back a special guest, Drew Davis, host of Too Good to Be Drew. Drew and I have collaborated before. You've heard him before on my show. I've been on his show before. And, University of Oregon legend, Drew Davis, I will also say, whose Ducks are in the college football playoff. They'll be playing the next day or two here. So, Drew, man, thanks for jumping back on, and really appreciate chatting with you again. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, Omar. I appreciate you bringing me on. Thank you for giving the people two episodes in a week. You are a godsend. I'm pretty sure they love you and they enjoy you and they can't live without it. But also outside of that, I'm just ready to get really ready to sit here, talk about, all the things we talk about, ball and life, and just enjoy another quick and great conversation.
Definitely. And, it's the end of the year, and I was saying this before we started recording, Drew, how I listened to your show right after we had scheduled this, and you were kind of talking about your goals for the next year. But before we get into that, I kind of want to talk about retrospectively 2025. It's kind of a crazy year in the world at large, but for you, kind of what were some of your personal highlights or some things that you'll look fondly upon this past year?
Man, looking back on 2025, like you said, it's great when you get to the end of the year to look back to see what you've done, also probably what you haven't done or what you set out to do. We know life gets into the middle and things happen. But one of the biggest things that happened last year, and it happened New Year or Christmas Eve of 2024, I guess,
Mm.
it was my girlfriend and I became godparents. So we had a friend of ours that asked us to be godparents of our little guy Silas, and so we became godparents. So we got somebody else that we're living for, and we got to protect and watch over, which is awesome. So I never didn't really consider when I'd be a godparent, but it's a great honor to be that. I have 11 nieces and nephews, so I know what it's about pouring into the younger people. One major thing that happened for me this year also is just I was blessed with a job opportunity working with teens and young adults through this new company called Wide Awake that approached me. I was looking for like a little something to do outside of my business. And as I pivoted to going into more speaking, and then honestly, I just fell into this opportunity. My girlfriend found it actually and sent it to me. It sounded like a Ponzi scheme. It sounded too good to be Drew or true, whichever one you want to say. And once I did my homework on it, I applied for it within the first 10 or 15 minutes. Like it all happened very, very quickly. But just that job opportunity is allowing me to work with a different demographic than I've worked with in my business. And these are young people from 13 to about 22 years old, and then also working with their parents, meeting with them outside of this. So it's been really a godsend, and God's blessed me to give me this opportunity and also just pull me more into helping and mentoring and helping this younger generation that's going through a lot of stuff. And then finally, just a lot more public speaking. I've had a couple opportunities. I spoke with the Big Brothers Big Sisters of Colorado for their graduation. I went to this event or this conference called the National Conference of Student Life, and it was just awesome. I got to present there on leadership, and I had a packed out room, and I was just really taken aback by how many people wanted to hear about leadership and just the way I taught it and how my kind of presentation and workshop was. So those are some of the biggest milestones for me in 2025, and I'm blessed that that God's given me these opportunities and that I've been ready for 'em.
For me, well, first of all, congratulations on becoming a godparent. I remember when I was a kid, my godmother was my dad's old boss and business partner. Her name was Elaine, she passed on, unfortunately. But she was always, I always think the role of the godparent's so cool because you have this huge responsibility if the worst case scenario happens,
Mhm.
but you're just kind of like the super cool uncle or aunt on steroids, So I remember we would go places and she would meet us there, and we would kind of learn about her business and what she was doing in New York City at the time, and so congratulations on that. That's the ultimate sign of trust, right? Where like a friend or somebody says to you, like, look, you don't want to assume the worst, but if the worst happens, I entrust you, with Silas's well-being, which is awesome to hear. For me, Drew, it's really been a year of forming new connections and
Mhm,
also realizing purpose. So,
mhm,
what I mean by that is obviously we got acquainted with each other this year, and and you and countless other people who I've interviewed on here, who I find myself, as friends now, not just a podcast guest, right? Um, and like we saw that in action recently. I was looking for an interview for an article, and you said, "Hey, let me go ahead and step in and use my connections." And it's just making forming connections in an unconventional way. When you move into a new city as an adult, as somebody in your 30s, a lot of times it becomes difficult to make connections organically, especially when you work remotely, as I do. So being able to find those connections digitally has been awesome. I think about my interactions with you, my interactions with my friend now Sarah Kiesler, who's been on my show a couple of times, and just different type Griffin Prock, who we both know. Who I consider a good friend of mine now. It's just that's been awesome. And the second thing is intentionality. I think a lot of times, you and I both create content. There, you feel like you're on this hamster wheel in a way, right?
mhm,
Where you're always you have to hit the deadline. You have to be hustle mode, put out content, content, content. And for a while I was doing that, and it just like I was like, I don't want to get to the point where I don't enjoy this anymore. I was actually on Griffin's show, and I said that to him before we started recording. And I kind of took a step back and I was like, okay, what am I doing here? I want to do stuff that I'm proud of. I don't want to do anything
mhm,
half-assed, right? So I kind of scaled it back. I was like, I like writing long form. I like doing my podcast. Let me focus on those two things. And as a result, I feel that's when the work gets better and the quality gets better. And I mentioned this on my last episode with Lex Mickens, where I do fashion myself as somebody who could represent a person like me, an Arab American excelling in a space, right?
mhm,
There's not a lot of Arab American journalists, right? And it doesn't happen all that often. So to kind of try and be more out there as somebody to look up to is kind of like a goal of mine, and I feel like I'm on that path. So it's been a good year in that regard. It's been an interesting year in the world at large, and we don't have to get into that. But I want to ask you about your feelings on New Year's. I kind of gave you the broad strokes of my view, where I'm really big on an opportunity for reinvention, and I think
mhm,
it might be arbitrary. It's just a calendar that some person came up with thousands of years ago, right? But it's I look at it as like the clock turns over, the month turns over. It's an
mhm,
opportunity to kind of reset and recalibrate and write a new chapter to your story, right? So
mhm.
is that how you feel, or how do you feel kind of about the turning over of the calendar year?
I feel a little bit different than you do.
Okay,
And
hit
it's
me with it.
only because, like, I think it's great. The idea of it is great. But
Hmm.
I think, some people look forward to it and they're like, I do it. And then, they fall off after a week or two or a month and then it's just done for them. And I'll say this, I had a great teammate by the name of Nate Costa. And when I was probably either a sophomore or junior, he was a year older than me. But I remember I was riding in the car with him one day, and I think we're towards the end of the year, and I was like, "Hey, I'm really excited to do some New Year's resolutions. Do you have any that you're gonna do?" And he kind of looked at me and was like, "No." And I'm like, "What's wrong with you, bro? Like it's New Year's. It's time to go into the new year and do something else." And his response has stuck with me till this day. And he was like, I don't just wait for the new year to, try new things or to be a different person. He said, if I feel that stuff in January or July or August, he said, I try to implement it, right away. And so for me, it was like, yeah, so don't wait till the end of the year to do something great, or don't wait to kind of turn things around for you if you're trying to lose weight, or you're trying to grow your hair out, or you're going to apply to start applying to schools or whatever it might be. Try to put that into action as soon as you can. And sometimes as humans, we just try to wait. We say, we're I'm gonna start at the first of the month. I'm gonna start at the
Mhm.
beginning of the week, instead of being like, somewhere at night and be like, you know what, tomorrow morning I'm gonna start doing this. Or right now, this is my last drink that I'm going to have, for the next 6 months, and just putting a date on it. But I would just say, I think everybody goes into it with good intentions. But as a performance coach and a life coach, I try to tell people, don't wait, to do great things, or don't wait to put these higher standards on yourself. Go ahead and put them into place as soon as possible to really see what your discipline level is, because that's really, really what we're measuring, how disciplined I can be to get the results that I want.
And I think that's an excellent point because the stereotypical New Year's resolution is I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to eat better, I'm going to reach this goal, whatever. And to your point, yeah, if you have a goal, you should be attacking that goal as soon as you possibly can. Don't wait for January 1st to do it. I do think that for me, the way it's evolved is is that it's a good time to take stock, right?
Mhm.
And then say, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what's happening. The craziness of the holidays is past because December's a weird month, really,
Yeah.
regardless of what industry you work in, and it's so I don't really have resolutions anymore as much as it's focus points, right?
Mm,
And I was just like, all right, I want to start doing this. All right, what's my action plan? That sort of thing.
yeah.
And and yeah, I think what your teammate said is a great point because we're not guaranteed to reach January 1st, right?
Yeah.
So it's important to do all that you can while you can. And like for in the middle of this year, I was like, I need to feel like I'm in better shape, right?
Mhm.
So I started like walking more, and that's evolved into occasional running more and that sort of thing. And I didn't wait until January 1st to do it because I wanted to get the ball rolling now. And I do think that taking stock of what's there and taking stock of where you want to improve and then formulating a plan of how that's going to happen and how you
Mhm.
can stick to it because problem with resolutions is that you're like, okay, I want to lose 100 pounds this year. Like, okay, well, how are you going to do it, right? And it's just like it becomes this thing where it's like you said, a week or two into it, he's like, I
Yeah.
haven't seen results. And one could argue, Drew, now maybe we could expand upon this a little bit. It's kind of this byproduct of the society that we live in today
Yeah.
where everything needs to be instant gratification,
Yeah.
right? Where everybody's like, I need to see results now. And you think about people like had this happen to me. Somebody reached out and said, I see you write on Medium and you have all these followers, blah, blah, blah. And for the record, I don't have a lot of followers, but to them, it was a lot of followers. And they were just kind of, I was like, well, how do you do? I was like, well, you just got to start writing, man. You just got to just put up and put the work in and put the stuff out. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to do it, right? He wrote like one piece, right? Two pieces. And it just dropped off, and it's just like because a lot of people want it to turn into like, "I'm gonna write that one thing, I'm gonna record that
Yeah.
one podcast, I'm gonna do all this," and then things are just gonna happen for me. When, like, you look at, like, the sustainably successful people who have been in a creation space or whatever, they've been successful after years of doing
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny. The tone of this conversation actually sounds like we're on the episode of your show, not mine. But I guess like, I mean, do you think there's anything to that where this kind of like instant gratification society that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, and it's tough, man, because you see somebody else, and somebody else can record, slightly, like every week they can record them working out or losing weight, and then so you watch them lose weight in a whole year in 60 seconds. And for you, you want that end product and that end goal, and it's what we've always wanted. I love the term you said about taking stock, because I really, really like that. I'm gonna borrow that from you. I'm gonna write you down as a citation for that, so don't worry. But one great thing I like to do at the end of the year is I like to do a vision board for the next year. And there's some years I do it, some years I don't. But it's kind of like you with taking stock. Like you're looking, you're saying, okay, how much money did I make this year? How much money do I want to make next year? How many speaking engagements do I want? Like, what are these smaller things that I want? I put stuff on there that I want to buy, that I'm just like, I want to save up and buy that. And so just for me doing that and looking at that every day, or couple of days a week, it reminds me what I'm working towards. And I think that's one of the biggest problems. We have 365 days to achieve a goal that we set out to do. And I don't even like when I'm trying to lose weight, like I lose weight in or when I'm trying to get into a certain physique, I try to do it in like 2 or 3 months. And that's saying, hey, I'm trying to lose 10 pounds. I'll give myself a month and a half to lose 10 pounds. But then I like hit it really hard. So I want to remind everybody out there to focus on consistency and not intensity, because I feel like that's a major focus point for everybody. Where, like I said, first week of January, they're in the gym every day. Second week of January, they're in the gym every day. Third week of January, I'm gonna hit snooze. I'm
Mhm.
not feeling real good today. And then one day turns into two, and then we have that domino effect. But just it's just the way society is right now. But it's about having fun with the journey, and that's what I'll challenge everybody with. It's about having fun with the journey and knowing that instant gratification. If you can get it really quickly, then it's probably not worth having.
Hmm. It's kinda like the fast food effect, right? It's just like, yeah, you get this little burger from McDonald's or Burger King, but, the home cooked meal is always gonna be better,
Mhm.
even though it takes longer to do. I'll before we get into the little shtick of the show, which is sports team and sports league resolutions, uh, I think on your show you kinda mentioned a couple of your goals for next year, which I think you mentioned you want to travel more,
Mhm.
you've already mentioned more speaking engagements. So what are some of your goals for this upcoming year?
Man, it's so funny because I've already forgot them. One of the biggest ones that I wanted to talk about, and I'm still fighting with it. I wanted to give up drinking.
Mm,
I don't have a bad relationship with it. Sometimes it's society. Sometimes we're in bars or we're at social functions, and it seems like it's just the right thing to do to have a drink in our hand because 90% of everybody has a drink in their hand. But I thought about it, and when I watch baseball, like I love to just have a Budweiser every now and then.
mm,
So I'm trying to still measure that out and figure out what I'm trying to do there. But honestly, I got to get back in the gym, and for people out there, like I've already started to get back in the gym. So like I wasn't waiting until January 1. I started on like December 19th after
mhm,
kind of I slowed down with my Christmas shopping and things that I was doing around then. But I as a life coach and as a person who coaches other people, I'm not going to tell them to do anything that I'm not doing. And for me, the gym and being in shape, I feel like I work better. I feel like my day goes better. I feel like my weeks and my months go by better when I have a consistent and a healthy relationship with the gym or with working out. And so I'm always going to talk about self-care. I'm always going to talk about giving your body what it needs, because we do this thing where we look at grinding or we look at hustling like it's a badge of honor. Like, yeah, I only slept for 2 hours last night and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. But it's like, man, okay, you're traveling, you're going all these places. Are you eating fruit? Are you eating vegetables? Are you drinking water? Are you getting the right amount of sleep you need to be able to make it to the next state before your body breaks down on you? So that's one major thing for me, is just to get back healthy and to get back right, because I don't care about how I look. I don't care about looking like a Greek god and Hercules if
mhm.
I can't walk up a flight of stairs without breathing hard. Like that's where
Right.
I lay my pride at. And so working out is one very big thing for me. And then I'll be vulnerable and say this second one because it really, really matters. Um, when it comes to New Year's resolutions or goals or vision board, I don't shoot really, really high because I'm afraid to fail and fall short. Like I'm afraid, when it comes to if we talk about salary or the money I want to make next year, I will usually be like, okay, let's say I want to make six figures, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. I'll kind of leave it just a little bit vague instead of saying an exact number. And so this next year, it's high, but like with me doing the work I'm doing and me doing public speaking, I want to make upwards of about $225,000 next year. And I don't say that to brag. I don't say that to boast, but I say that because I would never say that out loud, years before. Or I would be like, because if I don't make it, I don't want people to make fun of me or be like, oh, he didn't make as much money as he thought he was going to make. Like he's not as
Right.
bad as he thought he was. But I want to shoot higher, because I feel like when we aim higher, cool, I might not make 225 or 250,000, but what if I make 175? Like that's still pretty damn good. So I want to push that number higher. And I just read this book called The Referable Speaker. And it talked about like us putting limits on ourselves.
Mhm.
Us being afraid to fail, or us being afraid of the result that we want actually coming through. And so those are just two of my goals that I have for next year. And between me and you, I'm gonna text you when I come up with my whole list so we can kind of keep each
Okay.
other accountable and check in.
Perfect. You talked about the self-care aspect, and I had this happen to me recently because I told you, like, in the beginning of the year, middle of the year, I kind of started committing to just taking longer walks and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And recently here in the Seattle area, we've had like some flooding and stuff like that, a lot of rain, which is super stereotypical for the Pacific Northwest. But it was a more than usual amount of rain, and it was just like it rained for like a week straight. And
Mhm.
I was like, I don't really want to go out walking in this rain, blah blah blah. Um, and then I felt the void,
Yeah.
and so when it becomes a habit for you, like so for me, it's like 4 or 5 days a week, and which is attainable like an hour each time, that sort of thing,
Mhm.
and it becomes repeatable, and then you feel lost without it. So I think a thing you mentioned earlier where people are like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the gym every day," right? You have to have like stair step goals, I think,
Definitely.
right? Like start with 3 days a week, right? 2 days a week, whatever, and then you say, "Okay, I'm feeling good now," and it doesn't feel like a chore, like a job, right?
Mhm.
And that's a big thing, and that was like for me with writing as well, where it was just kind of like for yeah, I guess a peek behind the curtain, and so I was just kind of I was like, okay, I have my medium pieces that I do like once a week, 2 to 3,000 words. They're long, right? Like I know it's just an undertaking. I was like, all right, then I'm gonna do Substack as well. I'm gonna have two unique pieces on Substack. Then I'm gonna have my podcast. Then I'm gonna take my podcast and break out social clips, and then it's like boom, boom, all on top of my full time job,
Yeah.
which is also a creative endeavor. So it's like I was like, "Man, this seems like a lot." And, lately for like a generation of ideas and stuff, I've been using the Claude AI stuff. And
Mhm.
because Anthropic, I feel like it at least seems like responsible ethically of the AI company. So I just use it here and there for just idea generation and helping myself outline projects. I was like, all right, this is what I'm working with all this stuff. Am I stretching myself too thin? And the AI comes back like, "Yeah, dude, like you're definitely stretching yourself too thin," and then I started brainstorming it, and I was like, "Okay, let me just recalibrate," right? And
Mhm.
as a result, the quality I feel has increased, right? And I feel better about the work I'm doing. Like, you would set me up with Walter Thurman, and I talked to him, had a fantastic conversation, and I thought it came out with a piece about cornerback play that I probably couldn't have done in my previous arrangement because it was very time consuming.
Yeah.
Like I got a notebook, Drew, that I just scribbled down like random stats that I'm going to incorporate into a piece. I had 2 pages of defensive pass interference rate dating back to 1980. Right,
Wow.
so looking up all that stuff around all that, it takes time, right?
Mhm.
Like research takes time, you know that.
Yeah.
And so it's like if I was so committed to this timeline where it almost became a job, that wasn't going to work, right? So that's why I think like understanding yourself, understanding what you're capable of, and don't be addicted to this sort of like you said, hustle culture, hustle grind mode, and I'm only gonna sleep 2 days a week. Like those guys you see on podcasts say that shit all the time. Like whatever, bro. Like enjoy your deprived health eventually because you aren't resting your body enough. On that note, let's get into some sports New Year's resolutions. I thought this
Okay.
would be a fun game, right? And so we're going to take a few different leagues and kind of say what that entity's New Year's resolution should be. Okay, if they were to do a New Year's resolution, let's start as a big picture one here. Us as sports fans, we are a flawed group, right? And so where do we have room to be better, in your opinion? What's a resolution for the sports fan to kind of adhere to in 2026?
Oh man, how much time do we have? We can go on forever. Let's start with something small. How about not getting mad at players when our parlays don't hit? Like let's
Thank
let's
you.
let's
Yes.
let's like if you're gonna put the bet in, be confident that whatever happens, your rent money's not on there and all this other stuff. But because if one parlay doesn't hit one way, it hit another way. So, but let's just be more gracious as far as not letting what we bet on the game determine what we think about a player and about a team and their athletic ability. And then the second one, how about the people that sit courtside or close to the players? How about we not say hateful stuff? How about we sit there and we act like we bought a ticket to the game to watch it and we actually watch it? How about we do those two things?
The parlay one is so good because I made a post a while ago and I was just like, somebody had a good game. I can't remember who they like dropped 30 points NBA game. And then I was like, yeah, man, what a performance rights player, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, yeah, but if he would have gotten 34, I would have cashed my parlay. And I was like, dude, nobody cares. Okay. I gamble, man. Like so here in Washington State, you can't use the mobile apps, right? You have to
Uh-huh.
be on a Native American reservation casino
Yeah.
ground to be able to do it at the sports book, which I think is good because it enforces limitation.
Mhm.
But my partner and I, we go to the casino on Saturday mornings, and I'll get my little coffee from the little local coffee stand there, and I'll go to the little sports book, and I'll put a little money in. It's like $20 a week, 3, $4 a game, nothing
Yeah.
crazy. And like sometimes it won't hit, right? Like it happened to me this past week. Like I bet money on the Colts Jags game, it didn't win, and I'm not over here cursing Philip Rivers or cursing the Jaguars or whatever. It's just like you made a guess. Your guess,
Mhm.
while informed in some fact, is you're still betting on an incredibly unpredictable game. I mean, you
Yeah.
played, so
Yeah.
and it's just like, it's just like it happens. And complaining on social media about it is dumb. The courtside one is so true. Where it's just like you have to find the line between creating a hostile environment and just denigrating and degrading these players, right? That
Mhm.
just has to stop. And my big one is about social media. Is stop replying to bot accounts.
Ooh.
Stop falling for the rage bait. Okay, like, look, man. Somebody says something that's obviously intended to annoy you.
Mhm.
Just it's like you don't feed the monster, right?
Yeah.
You got to just kind of like move on. Use that block function. For the longest time, I avoided blocking people, right? But or muting people or muting a term like I actually was thinking about this, right? I kinda wanted to start muting the term ref, from social media or officiating
Uh-huh.
because, like, every time a team loses, whether you're a fan of the team or to your earlier point, you put money on the team, people was like, "Oh, the refs did this, the refs did that," and I was just kinda like, I never ever like to blame a ref, right? Like,
Yeah.
unless it's just like, do or die last second. I always look at it as sports is entertainment, sports is theater, right?
Yeah.
Are
Yep.
an actor in that theater is the referee, right? Like
Mhm.
it's like, oh, I think I've won the game. Oh, au contraire, and it's just like think about all the books we've read. It's just like where a figure kind of looms that presents itself that throws a wrench in the story. It's the same concept, and it's like ultimately people are what is like they're like, I just want the call to be right or whatever. It's like that's part of it, man. Like yeah, it sucks in the moment, but it's all part of it. I didn't see you complaining when the call went your way.
Of
You know,
course. Of
right?
course. They never do. And somebody said something really interesting. They said, well, I said it, but it was like, you'll never congratulate the refs on a good game. Like the way you know that the refs did a good game is if you didn't even know they were there, which is barely happens anytime. But it
Right.
also has to be a clean game by both teams. So how do you have like that's like you having not having cops on the highway to catch people speeding, but also being mad at them that they are there because they're doing their job. So a little bit of double-edged sword.
All right, let's move on to the NFL. What is the New Year's resolution, or what should it be for the National Football League?
Man, the National Football League, what should it be for them? It should be, and it's kind of funny you said this, just getting consistent on penalties and calls. So, and I mean calls in a
Like
way of
what
like,
constitutes what, right?
yeah, there's times like, oh, is that 1 foot or is that 2 feet? Like the Ravens game a while ago. Like I don't know how many hops or how somebody has to control the ball in the end zone. Like I'm not sure now. Like as much as is video and cameras and there seems like there's new situations that are popping up where the NFL's like, well, we don't know about that one, but based on the rule book, we think it's this. So no catch, no touchdown. And it's happened like that a few times on touchdown calls or catches or things like that. That's a very big one. I hope the NFL can just get under control because it's to the point where it's egregious to the point where we're having to have conversations on things that are happening that should be discussed and there should be a plan in place and implemented for them.
Yeah, that's a good one because when we're litigating what's a catch, what's not a catch, that's how you've kind of lost you lost your footing there with the NFL. And I'm going to probably say this as somebody who probably likes the NBA more than the NFL. Stop scheduling Christmas Day games, NFL. Listen, man, Christmas Day is hard for people who're spending time with their families. You understand, like, if you're a sports fan and you're trying to keep up with stuff, it's just like my concession is the Knicks always play on Christmas Day. I have to watch it.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a tradition. I need to watch it, right? but I'm not trying to watch NFL and NBA. It's just like you don't see the NBA scheduling Thanksgiving games.
Hmm.
Why? It's the NFL's day, but the NFL wants to monopolize it. I mean, for beyond that, I've made the argument before that the NFL is just a little too greedy with the days of the week.
Yeah.
Thursday night, Monday night, Sunday, of course, but now they
Hmm.
also have these Saturday games. They've done like a Friday game in Brazil.
Yeah.
It's just like you're
Yeah.
trying to maximize the revenue. It's like, dude, you're making more money than God. Like, what are we talking about here? And so for me, for them, it's just like take a step back. Maybe don't do Christmas. And also I think about the players too. Like
Yeah.
a bunch of like offensive and defensive linemen specifically have talked about how recovery time is a big issue
Hmm.
with these condensed weeks, right?
Hmm.
And so it's just like football's a brutal game, man, physically
Yeah.
demanding game, right? So it's not like the NBA where you could do a back to back. It's
Hmm.
just like it's. I just feel like it should be 6 or 7 days every time, and if that hurts the good folks at Amazon because they have rights to Thursday night football, so be it. But that's how I feel, man. It's like I think we would get a better product that way because less wear and tear on the bodies with more recovery time. I feel the same way about the NBA. I don't think there should be back to backs, but you know, what do I know? Just a guy with a microphone. So all right, let's stay in the NFL. What's a resolution for an NFL player that you got?
Oh, this has been big and it's popped up this year. Hold on to the ball past the goal line, please. Just score with the ball. You can walk across, hand it to the referee. It counts as a touchdown. I'm still seeing too many people dropping the
That's
ball
such a
before
good
the
one.
goal line. And then also stop talking about the officiating in the press conference and getting fined. Stop giving up 25, 10 grand, 50 grand just because you want to say something about the refs. Yes, I'm talking to you, Puka. But if you talk about the refs in any sport, they're gonna find you. So just know, just don't give your bread away that way. Hold on to your bread, donate it to your charity that you want to, because you know they're gonna find you. Just avoid the question about the refs and the officiating and calls. Just do it.
I'm gonna focus on one specific player, um, Lamar Jackson, my friend. I've been with you since day one. Your New Year's resolution should be to find a new team.
Mm,
Um, because listen, you you've been watching the game for a long time, as have I. There's certain players you identify in college, and you're like, I think that guy's gonna be good. And
yeah.
then when he's actually good, you're just kind of like, it's like you had this badge of honor. I called it. I remember I saw him at Louisville. I was like, this guy's gonna be good. And people are like, oh, he can't really throw. I was like, no, no, the it's there. I could see like a little bit of tweak. It's there, right? And
Mm,
then he turned into one of the best players in the league. I just feel like with the injuries and stuff and the way that it's gone in Baltimore, I feel like he's not fully appreciated there. I had
mm,
Adriana from Black Girls Love Football on here a little while ago. We kind of talked about that. And look, man, yeah, I know she doesn't want to hear this, but I think it's time. I think it's time to go elsewhere. Really, if you remember that contract situation he had a couple years ago,
yeah.
where they basically made him open to trade. First of all,
Hmm.
why any other team didn't take advantage of that is insane to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lamar Jackson, your New Year's resolution should be to get a new team. All right, let's talk about teams next. So it's a what NFL team resolution do you have?
Ooh, NFL team resolution. I think and with you, this goes to the whole NFL. Stop going for it on fourth down all the time like you
Oh,
think you're
there you go.
supposed to go for it on fourth down all the time. I don't like when people line up in the first quarter and they're like, yeah, this is a real big score. They need this one. They got to get this fourth down and they go for it. Like, they just started, bro. Like, so I just hate it because I study the game and I look at it. There's a book and I'm gonna send it to you. I think it's called like The Rules of Analytics or something. And it talks about the rise of analytics in football. I plan to read that in 2025. But I know that there are situations where you should, but I hate when I watch a game and I know there's things like field position and other things like that. But I hate when I watch a game and then somebody goes for it on fourth super early, or these teams that are going for two at these weird
Yeah,
times because of momentum or whatever, like just that stuff. And then you look at the end of the game and they lose by two. You know, they just passed up on a field goal in order to do whatever they did. Now, of course, it's a butterfly effect. There's a domino effect for things that happen. But I just hate when I see that. You go for two, you didn't get it in the third quarter, you score, y'all score a couple more times and you lose by one. That was the 1 point you left behind not too long ago. So that's my biggest one.
I heard a theory about this. I think Greg Olson mentioned it, where because of the new kickoff rules,
Mm,
you see more people go for it because they're making a decision. So I actually did this for a piece. I looked up the numbers on it. This is one of those situations where I was knee deep in data. That I'm talking about. So let's say you're inside. You're in a goal to go situation. You're inside the opponent's 10, and it's fourth and goal at the 5, right? And you decide you could either take the 3 points or you can go for it. So
Mhm,
if you choose to go for it, your obviously your best solution is that you got the touchdown. But if you don't get it, they have to start from the 5. With the new
mhm.
kickoff rules, if they kick a touchback, it's up to the 35, I believe, with the
Yeah.
new rules. Yeah, so and the average return is getting the ball to the 30, 35 anyway.
Mhm,
So the opponent's probability of scoring a touchdown or getting points even from the 5 versus the 35, it's a huge drop off. So that's why they do it.
mhm.
But then again, you like if you had just gotten the field goal there, you put points on the board, you wouldn't have been in a certain situation. Like we saw it recently with Seattle when they played Indianapolis,
Yep.
where they just got a bunch of field goals and won the game. If they had just gone like super analytics on fourth down, probably don't win that game.
Yeah.
So I feel like you have to understand your personnel and understand who you have on this team and don't just kind of say, well, the analytics and numbers say to go for it. Like, well, you got to use a little bit of common sense. You got to marry the both a little bit there. Mine is maybe a little it kind of relates to kickoffs as well. I think kicking needs to be more specialized.
Mm,
And so you have all these kickers now, and you're getting longer and longer field goals. But those kickers aren't exactly great at kickoffs, right? Because with the new kickoff rule, again, you want to get in the landing zone. You
yep.
probably want to angle it closer to the sideline and force them to return it, so your 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 coverage unit has a chance to converge on the ball and really maximize on the field position thing. You know who does that really good? Punters. So I think you should have punters exclusively do your kickoffs because they're better at angling. They're more in tune with accuracy and that sort of thing. And
Hmm.
so teams specialize the kicking game. Don't only get the place kicker to be both. You can kind of find what works best for you. That's what I got for teams. I had coaches on here. I kind of want to skip coaches though because I feel
I
like
want
we've
to
kind
talk
of.
about it. Can I talk? I want
Oh,
to talk
okay. Yeah,
about it.
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I
I'll
only
let you
want to
handle
talk
that one.
about it because I want to be facetious. I just want to. I think we need to be bring fancier dress code back on the sidelines. I think we
Oh,
need
okay.
guys in three-piece suits and fedoras, in cardigans, I think in quarter zips. I think we need coaches dressing better. We need to get rid of the little joggers that stop at the calf, like Sean McVay be wearing and Raheem Morris. I think we need full suits, slacks, dress shoes, what are they called? Cufflinks. I think we need all that.
Okay, okay. The that's kind of like that's a big thing in the NBA as well that they talk about is like you think about like Pat Riley back in the day,
Yeah.
slick back hair,
Drip.
drip,
Drip.
right? And now everybody's looking like they're trying to put up some shots at at the free run, right? So that's a good one. I wouldn't mind it actually. I understand the whole, or you could go full on like like they do in baseball where they have to wear the uniform.
Hey, that'll be hilarious. That'll be hilarious.
Imagine like Andy Reid wearing pads or something on the side.
That will be hilarious.
Let's jump into college football. What are the institution of college football has a lot that it could change. So, what are some New Year's
Mm.
resolutions for college football that you would throw out there?
Man, I understand the autonomy and letting people transfer to whatever they want, but like once you get upwards of 4, 5, 6, 7 schools, like that's a little bit OD. So we need to rein it in. There needs to be some cap on how many times you can transfer. I'm aware that there are certain situations for certain players, some extenuating circumstances, but I think once you get up there, I think I read about a player being on his, I think it was Finley. He was on his like seventh or eighth
Yep.
school, and he has like 2 or 3 kids. And I'm like, all right, bro, we need to start thinking about life. Like, there's this football thing. Being able to play football and play sports in college is a privilege. But also, if you're just chasing it and you're waiting for the NFL to happen, is probably not going to happen. So, anybody that's went to that many schools, not to talk about your athletic ability, but there's some disconnect in between there.
I heard an interview with him. It is Finley. I think he started at LSU, he
Hmm.
transferred to Auburn, Texas State, Western Kentucky, and he's trying to get another year. And I'm just like, okay, if you're at Texas State or Western Kentucky, a G6 school, who isn't really at the top of the G6 like a Boise or whatever.
Yeah.
What's the NIL really? And how much less would you be making if you just went and played in the UFL? You
Mm.
know, and or, tried to do like one thing I learned when I was covering arena football recently was that there's a lot of leagues in Europe.
Mm.
So that I really didn't know about. Like, there's like a French American football league. There's a German league. Like a lot of these different countries have American football. They're super low level still, but they're
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, like, if you want to make football the career, your dream is to be in the NFL or whatever. And I listened to this interview. It was on Ringer Tailgate. They were interviewing this guy,
Mhm.
and Van Lathan, one of the hosts of there. He was kind of just like he was saying what you were saying. Like it's like, all right, at a certain point, come on, right? And then he was kind of mentioned his situation and everything, and I was just kind of like, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't we need to really be able to boost something like the UFL up where it's an actual path?
Yeah.
Like in basketball, a guy could go to the Euro League if it doesn't pan out in the NBA, So that's why this is more of a football thing than a
Yeah.
basketball thing, right? And so, yeah, I do agree that at a certain point, I think you should just have contracts at this point, right? Like if you commit to a place, 1 year contract, 2 year contract, whatever, you got to honor the contract, and the school also needs to honor the contract. It's
Yep.
got a couple. I think we have to be really careful on placing all of this on the athlete when
Mhm.
the school is run unchecked forever.
Yeah.
And I was mentioning this earlier where I feel like we're in such a rush to transfer that we don't want to let some of this stuff bake. That's why I think when you sign somewhere, it probably is better to be there for 2 years just to see.
Yeah.
Like you were at Oregon for 4 years, and I don't know if you ever had like an inclination to want to transfer, but Oregon's kind of a
Definitely.
rough like, like, "Oh, I only played in 2, 3 games my freshman year. I wanna get out of here." And, yeah, I don't know, it's just, it's a balance that I think, needs to be struck. For me, it's can we stop the just, like, the way that people talk about these G6 programs? Like,
Mm.
I'm not gonna lie, when, Tulane and James Madison got in, not because of some preferential treatment, but because the ACC was garbage. Like,
Yeah.
let's be clear. Also, Notre Dame, if you were in the ACC as a member, you would have been in the playoff. Stop lying, right? So get that out of the way. But we're acting like, oh, well, this is an abomination to the sport, and this is embarrassing, blah blah blah, and all this, and acting like TCU didn't lose by 50 one time in the college football playoff game, acting like, all these teams did run roughshod because there's the cream of the crop,
Mhm.
your Ohio States or whatever, and then there's other teams below that, and I just don't like the way that they treated both Tulane and James Madison. Did they lose big? Yeah, they did. So
Mhm.
newsflash, it's hard to win in Oregon, against that team. It's incredibly hard. But I just think that all this talk about we just want the best 12 or whatever and all that is just kind of like sour grapes from fan bases that didn't get their team in. And I think we need to be better about that. And you need to really just kind of formulate a playoff system that actually works. And because if you take out the G6 teams, you know, then what are they playing for?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, they're playing for there's a chance for a golden ticket, And it's just like, so I think that's one. Another is that they need to fix their calendar, right?
Mm.
College football should fix the whole thing where my team's in the playoff, but I want to enter the portal, right?
Yep.
It's just like it fucking sucks. The coaching,
Yeah.
the Lane Kiffin thing, it sucked. It was a because LSU wants him to start recruiting now,
Yep.
and so he has to leave, right? And it's just kind of like I think that like in professional sports, and let's be honest, college football has become a professional sport at this point with the
Mm.
way the money is.
Mhm.
You can't talk to anybody to hire them until their season is done,
Yeah.
right? So like if the defensive coordinator from Green Bay wants to be considered for a job, the Giants and whoever else is going to have an opening, they have to wait until Green Bay is eliminated, then they can talk to 'em, and
Yep.
just that's what college football should do. So that's my resolution for college. Um, let's go to the NBA. What's a resolution for the league as the NBA?
Ooh, a resolution for the league. So I don't watch much NBA basketball. Follow it a little bit. Think they're
Okay.
doing good with the NBA Cup at the beginning of the year. I think it's made basketball and made those guys more competitive, and it's made it more compelling to watch. So I would say a resolution is for them to continue to figure out how to continue to keep it better and get it better and keep that excitement about it. But then they also need to figure out how to make All-Star game important again. All-Star
Ooh.
game is kind of falling off with the play and how much effort people put into it, from my vantage point. But also, like, that's the time you got all your guys, you got some of the best people, and a lot of people are getting the all-star nod and then being like, oh, I'm not playing. And so that's bad for the fan bases, for the people that are going there to see and that have voted for this player to be an all-star, but they don't want to go and they don't want to participate.
Yeah, that's a good one because I'll be honest, I haven't cared about All-Star Game in about 10 years,
Mhm.
and like they're doing the world versus US thing. I don't know, maybe. I gotta feel like just do what the NFL did. Admit that the game fucking sucks and do a bunch of mini games,
Yeah.
and just make it a weekend about fun activation events and have a bunch of sponsorships. It doesn't have to be an actual game. I feel like the NFL was onto something there, and just do I tune in for the Pro Bowl stuff? Not really,
Yeah.
but at least watching like a couple one-on-one things or a skills competition, that's going to be more exciting than
Yeah.
a 190 to 180 score in a game
Yeah.
where nobody's even trying to play defense.
Yeah.
um
And to add to that, and watching grown men play dodgeball is pretty freaking hilarious.
yeah, I'm in there. I'm in. Sign me up. I mean, we all watched that movie, Drew. We know what time it is. uh for the league, I would say they really need to get a handle on these soft tissue injuries, right? Why
Mhm.
does it keep happening? I feel like Adam Silver's ignoring the problem, but there is data to suggest that they've always happened, but between the style of play with it being so fast, it hasn't been this fast since the 70s,
Mhm.
and with the amount of distance traveled for these players, it's leading to injuries and your star players are out. The Eastern Conference is wrecked this year
Yeah.
because of injuries to Tyrese Halliburton and Jason Tatum. Now, the Celtics are still playing well, but they'd be a
Yeah.
juggernaut with Tatum there. And the Pacers are the worst team in the conference, and they wouldn't be if Halliburton was there. And then we'd have a really interesting East with them alongside Philly, New York, and
Mm.
Detroit. So that's my big one there. Also, he's talked about NBA Europe. Figure out what you want to do, man. Do you want to expand? Do you want to create a European league? So I'd love to see a team here in Seattle, but that's a selfish desire for me. But um, I'll let you pick through these next ones. Since you said you're kind of like passively following the NBA players, teams, and coaches.
Players, teams, and coaches. I would say the biggest thing, players, teams, coaches. I would say for the players, stop acting like y'all really trying to fight. Y'all ain't really trying to fight. All these little skirmishes and kerfuffles and brouhahas that you guys are claiming are gonna pop off. The reason we play sports is for you to be physical and dunk on somebody and yell in their face and for it to be legal. A lot of y'all ain't busting a grape in a food fight. Y'all ain't really throwing no punches like that. Don't try to go into the other player's locker room like you really want to fight him and get jumped. Just stop with all the tough guy antics, play basketball, and yeah, that's about it. Because it's getting on my nerves watching it and having to see security run on the court. Now NBA teams got their own security people to break up a fight, and then the red coated people who are like courtside come on and separate people. It's just I just hate fake tough guys, and a lot of NBA guys are fake tough guys, and in the NFL too. So not just there.
It's so true. Like some of the stuff you see is just like, all right, what are we doing here? Like you guys aren't about to fight, and like you hear any NBA player say, "It's like no guy's really trying to fight or whatever." Like they did a little bit in the '90s. A couple
Yeah.
different teams like Knicks and the Pistons of that era were big fighters, but ultimately, no one's trying to fight. These guys are all just trying to play the game or whatever, and the whole fake tough guy shit just never works. For players, for me, I'm gonna need Giannis to stop being so passive aggressive about this trade stuff.
Mhm.
Either make the official trade request or don't. And I think like he backed himself into a corner by doing this whole loyalty thing, and
Yeah.
and the same thing happened to Damian Lillard. And I think like if you want to be traded, just say you want to be traded. Accept the blowback that comes with it. Don't try to be the good guy all the time. And like, look, man, there's never a good guy in a breakup. and you want to break up with someone, someone's feelings are about to be hurt, and it's not yours. So it's like let's be honest here. Teams, for me, it's NBA is trying to address this. Tanking,
Mhm.
is the thing. So one could argue. A lot of people say that tanking is only a problem in the NBA. One could argue that the Raiders were engaging in tanking this past week in the NFL. And I think football as a sport, though, you can't really half-ass football. It's such a physically demanding sport. So even if you're putting in backups or lesser known guys, they're still going to try to ball out as much as possible.
Yeah.
Uh, you got teams now though, they're gonna actively try to lose games because of draft pick compensation and just trying to increase their lottery odds and that sort of thing. And I think that teams need to respect the game a little bit more, and the NBA needs to institute some rules that prevents them from taking. Part of I will give them credit, the in season not in season the play in tournament has
Mhm.
really benefited those teams that were in the 9, 10, and 11 range,
Yeah.
but it's done nothing for the people at the bottom of the standings. They're like, "Whatever, we weren't even gonna make the play-in anyway. We're the Washington Wizards. We don't care." You know? So, I think that needs to be addressed, and as far as coaches go, I'll use your point. The attire on the sideline, go get back to Pat Riley, and I think like we got some younger coaches now, and everybody's wearing the polyester quarter zip, and why can't they
Mhm.
wear a better quarter zip? You know, I see Mike Brown, coach of the Knicks, on the sideline, got the little Converse All Star looking things, but they're not made
Yeah.
by Converse. It's that
Yeah.
style, a more expensive shoe. I respect what he was going for there, but I'd like to see a little bit more fashion. You know who does the fashion thing right? By the way, is women's college basketball.
I was just about to go there. I was gonna say Don Staley, you got
Yeah,
Kim
yeah,
Markey, like those and that style, like and that's showing up and doing it right.
yeah, and it's like I'd like to see more of that. It doesn't have to
Mm.
be a full suit because some guys that's not designed for them.
Yeah.
Like I think about like when Mike Brown, going back to him, when he was introduced this past summer, he was wearing like the white button up, no tie, just on the collar. I was like, yeah, unk status. I like it. Let's let's maybe that on the sideline. But it seems like that everybody's wearing the same quarter zip and the same pants, and it's just kind of
Mhm.
like a monolith almost. It's
Yep.
like when you
Yep.
see those sci-fi movies, and it's like they envision what the attire of the future is. Everybody's wearing the same jumpsuit. You it's just like, let's move on past that. So I think we got some good New Year's resolutions here, Drew. I think we did a good job. I can't have you on here without talking about some books.
Oh
So
yes.
if for those of you that don't know, Drew and I did a read along kind of tandem read, and we talked about Difficult Men on his podcast, which is a fun book to read if you're into prestige TV. So 2025, we talked to we both read a fair share of books. So what's some titles that you read this year that kind of stuck out to you?
Man, so many books. 26 books was the goal for this year. I'm on 27. Maybe I could finish one before New Year's comes. But a lot of different things. And like you said, with New Year's resolutions, I look at what books I've read in the past year, and I've done some research on just men and what we read. And we tend to read a lot of nonfiction stuff that we can apply. And so this year I kind of dove into fiction and wanted to read more things and kind of help curate my mind to develop empathy, because that's one thing women say we're not good at, and we're not. We're getting better. We're going to therapy, don't worry. But some great books that I read this year that I really like: Eraser by Percival Everett. I read Ricky by Howard Bryant. A really great movie, really great book. I played baseball was the first sport I played, is the first love of my life, and I love going to a baseball game and just sitting down and having a hot dog and a beer and talking to some friends. So hearing about Ricky's life was just freaking amazing. When Crack Was King by Donovan X was one of my favorite books of this year. I've heard so many great things about it when I picked it up, and when I picked it up, I just didn't want to put it down. Great information about the crack era, great information about government and politics, and just this whole amalgamation of things that was just awesome. So if you get a chance to look at that, Why We Love Baseball by Joe Posnanski. Like I said, love
Mhm.
baseball is my very first love. But that one just goes over like 100 moments in baseball that really, really stick out. And anybody that's a baseball basketball fan and wants to learn about them, that's a book to go to. All Sinners Bleed, S.A. Cosby. If you know S.A. Cosby, he does some great things. Razor Blade Tears, just an awesome black writer. Go support him. Just does a lot of great things. Rising from the Rails by Larry, and I don't know if it's Ty or T, but that is about Pullman porters way back in the 1900s, about black Pullman porters, and kind of just that job and what it was looked at as far as a community and what that ended up being going forward. Really, really great book. I actually really started reading that because I was watching Sinners and that part where they pull in the train station and I just saw a Pullman porter and I was like, you know what? Next book I'm gonna read is about Pullman porters. Or I said I'm going to look up books about Pullman porters, and that's one that popped up. And now that I know Larry T or Ty, I apologize, whatever your name is, he does a lot of great books, but he does a couple things on jazz. And those that know me or will get to know me know I love jazz. Can't play an instrument, can't sing worth a lick, but I love to send appreciation to people like that that do. And then one of the last two books to kind of round this out, Sky Full of Elephants by Sibo Campbell. Great, great book of fiction. Will have you thinking a little bit as you get out of there and as you really listen to it and listen to it, read it, and then kind of reflect back on it. And then also just last one, and I missed it actually. Hold on. Let me back up. Oh, and then also just I'm reading a current book right now, Stand Firm and Act Like Men by Joby Martin.
Mm.
Just I'm doing more mentoring, so I'm trying to have stuff to point people to. We're reading it in my men's group for church. But it's just about, if you're a man out here, there we're kind of losing some things, and it just talks about what the essence of a man is. It's not about what you have, how much money you have, how many girls you can get, but about those essence of things in a Christian man and what you should be trying to build in yourself. So it's an awesome pickup and an awesome book if you're trying to delve more into spirituality, but more so if you're trying to really it's a great book for all men to pick up, I would say. And I'll leave it at that. So that's what I'm reading this year, and that's what I've enjoyed.
All right, so love those. I'm gonna actually need you to send me that list so I can add them
Got
all
you.
to my list. So for me, there's been a few as well that I want to kind of highlight. So, I love Greek mythology. It's always
Mm,
been. I posted about this on Threads a while ago, where when I remember when I first learned about it, I think I was in fifth grade, fourth grade, and my our teacher, what she did was she turned off the lights, and she said, "Put your head on the desk." I'm like, okay, and she's like, "I want you to remember what we're about to learn about has is what a group of people in ancient times believed. You have to keep all of your current belief systems at the door. So whatever you believe in, if you don't believe in a God, if you're Christian, Muslim, Jew, it doesn't matter, right? And you leave your beliefs at the door. This is what they believed, and enter it with an open mind, right? And ever since she did that, and I was able to do that, I I found it incredibly fascinating because there was so much unknown about the world then, so they had to make stories to make it make sense, right?
mhm,
And that's why it's always interesting. So there are 3 books I wanna mention that are Greek mythology adjacent that, or kind of stories within and reimagined stories of them that I kinda wanna highlight. So the first is I, Medusa by Ayanna Gray. Another thing, if anybody knows anything about me, I am obsessed with the story of Medusa because people think it's just a monster story, but it's actually so much more, right?
mm,
It's a story about violence, it's a story about trauma, it's a story about isolationism and the cost of isolationism. So this was kind of written in as a villain origin story of sorts, and it shows you that it's not really black and white. There's a lot of shades of gray in that story. The second one is Pandora's Jar by Natalie Haynes. This kind of looks at women in Greek mythology and how they've been written and how they have been kind of misinterpreted over the years. So you talk about Medusa's one of them, Helen of Troy is another, and how the modern interpretation is flipped and how they've been done a disservice. And
mm,
the last one is Hera by Jennifer Saint, which is a retelling of Zeus's wife and how she was kind of in mythology written as this sort of cold, bitter, evil woman, and in a very stereotypical way, in a way that if a man who cheated on his wife would talk about his wife, right? And which would be Zeus in this situation. And I think that that one really kind of painted her in a different light. Because I remember learning about Greek mythology, and I was just like, man, fucking Hera, man, she fucking sucks. You know, she's always mad, always taking it out. But there's no, it's just like she was actually incredibly hurt. And this book kind of talks about that and all that. One I do got to highlight. It's an old book, but it was new to me. Was Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. Um, I think this is one of the best books I've ever read, and
Mm,
because I I worked in the restaurant industry for almost a decade, and the stuff he was talking about in this book, I was just like, man, he nailed this on the head. Just talking about like the subculture of kitchen life. You know, you don't understand it until you lived it, type of thing, right? And he really tapped into just like this underbelly of society that
mm,
really was just that really goes misunderstood, misinterpreted, in a way that you won't understand unless you've been there. And it kind of gives you a peek behind the curtain, gives you understanding of what it's like at the restaurants you eat at. Not the cleanest thing you would think it would be, right? That's why it's kinda called Kitchen Confidence. It's a great book. It's just
mm.
if you haven't read it yet, and I know I'm super late to the party because it was released in, like, 2008, but, it's an incredible book, and, I hate that, Anthony Bourdain is no longer with us, but, yeah, he was just such a visionary in the food space. I got a couple more for you. Black AF History by Michael Harriot
Mm.
retells American history from the lens of Black Americans. It's witty, it's scathing, it's joking. It has a lot of elements of black culture in it, and it's so good. And I listened to that one on audiobook, and it was him narrating it.
I was gonna ask you
And
that.
yeah, which makes it 100 times better
Yep,
because
agreed.
because he's talking like if he was just at a cookout or something talking to his family
Yep,
members, right? That's
yep.
how he was narrating this book.
Yep. And
And
I'll interrupt you. And the great thing about that audiobook is that there's some things he's saying in the audiobook that's not in the book because I was doing it at the same time. So
oh
it's
yeah,
sometimes when there's like an asterisk or whatever, but there's sometimes he just starts talking and it's nowhere to be found. And you're just like, all right. So this is not to interrupt you too much. My bad.
no, the last one I'll give you is Blood in the Machine. Um, let me pull it up here. I can't remember the name of the author offhand, so I apologize. But so what this is about is the Luddite movement during the Industrial Revolution. And if you're unfamiliar, it was when the artisans, right, your weavers, your tailors, your cobblers, where they were being displaced by factories, right? Textile factories and mills and all that. And they were forced to quit doing their crafts, their artisan crafts, and had to get factory jobs, right? Because it was more efficient, it was cheaper, right? And it kind of talks about their rebellion, and what they did is they invaded factories and set them on fire. And this was in London, and ultimately they wasn't long term successful because the factories won eventually, right? We know that. Think about all the clothes we have now and how they're made, but there was a correlation in between that and how AI is being treated today, where
Mm,
everybody's talking about how it's the future, but the only future it's really provided is eliminating jobs. And it's a book that is well written from a storytelling perspective because you think of the term Luddite, it's like a bad word. Like it's like you're refusing to accept change and that sort of thing is kind of weaponized, right? But realistically, it was just like it's not that. It was just a focus on quality. And the author correlated that. I think it's Robert Merchant was his name. Now it finally came to me. But um, it, he correlated the rise of the AI boom and big tech and how they're treating it with the factory owner of the Industrial Revolution. And it's a type of book that resets your viewpoint on this subject. And it's a
mm,
type of book for me that reinforces a feeling I've had where, before the pandemic, Drew, I was very committed to my day job at the time.
mm,
And so much so that it defined big parts of my personality. Post pandemic, I was furloughed from two different jobs twice in 1 year, right?
mm,
So it gives you a different perspective, and you realize that a company, they always talk about how they look at you as family, how they really care about you, and they just spend a lot of money on R&D and marketing and stuff to really deliver that message. And
Mm,
realistically, if you were to drop off the face of the earth within one day, they're opening a position on their jobs portal to replace you, right?
yep.
And so that's kind of the message I got. But it's a book I reference a lot in conversation, especially as AI is very much on front and center with a lot of people these days. So I would highly recommend that one. So those are my kind of like top reads from this past year. Looking ahead, are there any genres or authors or subject matters that you're looking to get more into this year in your reading journey?
Man, as I try to turn around and look at my bookshelf, I think I'm gonna still rock with fiction. I still think there's some work to be done there. Like I talked about S.A. Cosby, he's great, and so he has about, I'm not even gonna lie on him, but he has at least 10 plus books out. But I just ran across this guy named Donald Goings, and I'm reading his book right now. It's called Black Girl Lost. He has about more than 15 books. But he has a really interesting story, and we'll talk about it one day. But since you're from New York and you know, and I'm gonna just laugh because I can't believe I'm telling people this. Um, one day I was high, dropped my girlfriend off at one of her tea parties down in Hollywood, and I'm listening to music and I'm listening to Rome Streets he's with Griselda, kind
Yep,
of that
yep.
runs with that group, and I'm like, what kind of name is Rome Streets? So I look up his name on Wikipedia, go down this rabbit hole, and pretty much Rome Streets was a person in one of Donald Goings' books. Said, who is Donald Goings? So I started looking up Donald Goings, had an interesting life, but he was in and out of jail, drug addict, and then he started writing to keep himself off of drugs, pretty much. And he did, 15 or 20 books in the span of a couple years, I want to say. Unfortunately, he was killed in him and his wife were killed in their kitchen. Mystery still unsolved, and
Wow.
everybody says they think it's from, he wrote about some people in his books that might actually be real people. I want to say he's from Detroit or Chicago, up in that area. But after I found that information on Wikipedia as I'm sitting there high, um, out in public, which I get really paranoid, I went on there and I bought a couple of his books. And so I'm reading through one right now. Terrific writer, very vivid, very detailed. Talks about, the hood and just the inner city and just Black culture, which I really like. So he's one I really want to dive into. And then I got this President Obama book from, I think I got it in 2019. It's like 700 to 800 pages. Got it as a gift from my friend Nia. Haven't opened it a lick. But I think that's a book that I'm gonna dive into in 2026 and spend some time with. I think me and you talked about it before the show started, that there's people out here reading all these books, and you open or you grab a 700, 800 page book, and that's maybe, depending on how fast you read and how often you read, that's a 2 or 3 month project, at the
Mm,
very least. So, but I think it's about time for me to read it. I've always been the person that just reads one book at a time, and slowly over time, I've kind of started opening it with two. I might have a leisure one, or I might have an educational one that I'm reading. But I try not to bite off more than I can chew. But I kind of want to stay in the fiction, and then, like I said before, I also want to read more, well, Black women authors too. I don't read
mm.
those enough, or women of color as well. So just delving into some deeper stuff. I know, I really like Toni Morrison. I really like bell hooks, so like probably opening a couple more of those and kind of expanding my reading palette, as you would say.
Yeah, for me, I kind of so at the urging of my girlfriend, I listened to a thriller novel recently by Riley
Mm,
Sager. It's called The Only One Left.
okay.
And so wild story. It has the makings of a movie. I can see it already. But it was a different read because like a lot of the stuff I read is it's so a lot of the stuff I read, it kind of leaves you with a takeaway, right? Like a deeper thought.
Hmm.
This one, it didn't really leave me with a deeper thought, right? It was just here's a story, crazy shit happened. Whoa, right? And I was like, oh, maybe I want to do a little bit more of that. I always like to expand the horizons. I read a little bit of fantasy this year. I like to do a little bit
Hmm.
more of that as well. And also, I kind of had from the nonfiction realm. I want to dive deeper into the French Revolution, mainly because of our current political climate. A lot of people that have are versed on the subject said, "Hey, there's a lot of parallels here," and so I kind of want to discover that for myself. It's a period of history that I have a gap on, so that I think for me is the big one. But Drew, I've kept you way too long, man. When you and I do episodes, the time just melts away. But thank you as always for joining me, man. I always love our conversations and the tangents that we go on. So you just let everybody know where they can keep up with you and tune into your podcast and all that.
No problem, Omar. You know, anytime we connect, I'm all about good conversation. It ran over. I ain't got nothing else to do. I ain't got no meetings till 6. But everybody that wants to get at me on most social media platforms, Drew Jay Davis, my full name on everything. You can find me on Threads talking about anything and everything from books to sports to my latest interactions, where I feel like I'm the Black Larry David, just walking on this earth from time to time. But outside of that, you can catch me on my podcast, Too Good to Be Drew, available on Apple and Spotify. And then Omar, we need to read a book next year. So what's up? What we doing? We need to collab on a read.
Oh man, you just let me know when you're ready and we'll make it happen. Yeah.
All right,
You,
that
you know
sounds
I'm down.
good.
Hey, look, if we commit to like two books that we do tandem and do episodes on like we did with Difficult Men, I am more than game for that. So you just let me know. When you see one that really sticks out, and we'll do the tandem read again because that was a lot of fun, man. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, we could definitely make that happen. There's our New Year's resolution as a group there. So that works out. Um, if you enjoy, thank you, Drew. If you enjoyed this podcast, we are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. We are a video podcast on Spotify and YouTube as well. So if you want to watch on your TV, you can do that. So that's bringing you guys a bunch of new guests, new topics, new viewpoints in 2026. So until next time, thank you again for tuning in to the Deep Cover Podcast.